What's going on?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Gallows Podcast, where we discuss the latest and greatest news and information from the horror community. With me tonight, I have my co-host, Thomas Paxton. What's up, Thomas?
Doing great. How are you doing? You know?
Doing pretty well, man. Definitely. Holy shit. We had some people invested coming in watching. Yeah, needless to say, sometimes with Facebook, we have we mentioned it before, right? We have technical opportunities. That's the new euphemism I'm going to start fucking employing whenever we have to do these things. Apologize, guys. We were into it, kind of discussing the content and everything, and then, it got killed for whatever reason. I don't think it was copyright or anything this time either. I think we're good. Sometimes if we talk about stuff or if we create content or we show stuff like clips, which we did some trailers for like 28 days later and 28 weeks later, it's what we'll be discussing. I'll get into that. This is the big fucking apology for this. Okay. So essentially, sometimes we've had in the past where we display the content and Facebook's like, no, you can't do that, but they're trailers and they're safe. So I don't think that's what it was in this case. We're back. We're going to do the fucking thing. And tonight, yes, we'll be talking about 28 days later and 28 weeks later, what will happen, the way this will work. I'll set it up. We'll kind of get things going with 28 days later. I will show the trailer. We will then discuss it, give it a rating, and then rinse and repeat. Same thing. Then we'll do 28 weeks later, trailer goodness, discuss it, give that thing a rating, see if it needs to go to the gallows or not, right? Without further ado, what we'll do is I'll go ahead, we'll fire this up, we'll watch the first trailer, and then we'll get moving. Ooh, can't wait for the anticipation. It's killing me.
Yeah!
Here we go, baby.
Who are you?
Wake up today in hospital. I wake up and I'm hallucinating. I've
got some bad news.
They're infected.
Infected!
Father.
Infected with nuts!
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's the blood. There's something in the blood.
Lesson 1. You never go anywhere alone unless you've got no choice.
Hello?
Lesson 2. You only travel during daylight unless you've got no choice.
This really is a bad idea. You know why? It's obviously a bad idea.
We have to leave now. More will be coming. They always do.
They're dead. And you're gonna be next.
All right. Needless to say, this movie's fucking amazing. So the one thing I was going to start off with was let's kind of go back in history a little bit. So George Romero comes out, right? Night of the Living Dead, breaks all fucking paradigms, shifts the paradigm forward and says, okay, well, here are zombies, here are creatures, these flesh eaters, these humans. His zombies are lumbering. Rachel Gordon, welcome. We have returned. But George Romero creates zombies that they are terrifying. New concept back in like the 1950s into the 60s. Lumbering, slow, but the entire premise of that was George Romero was leaning on, okay, well, yes, they're slow and they're lumbering, but if you have these in numbers, millions of them at a time, thousands of them at a time, they're terrifying. They're dangerous because how do you stop that? It was also speaking to consumerism and this consumerism as a culture, essentially, social norm it's not even a norm back then. It's just a social norm. And the idea that, consumerism can be a great symbolic aspect when, equating it to like the zombie subgenre of horror films. Hopefully I'm not babbling my fucking mouth off here, but, yeah,
You're doing fine.
I did my best. You know what I mean? So then you move into, like way forward, going to 2003. Okay. And Danny Boyle comes out with this movie. Up until that point, most zombie movies, with a few exceptions, I would say like Return of the Living Dead is one of them. That was more campy and kind of slapsticky. They were lumbering, slow zombies. Danny Boyle then came back and reinvigorated at the time, the zombie franchise by doing 28 Days Later, which even though they are considered infected, they run like marathon fucking runners. So you then have the element of, slow lumbering, but now you have, well, they're going to run after me in packs and come kill me, which added an entirely new level of visceral horror. It was magnificent, basically. Yeah. I mean, in terms of those films, Thomas, what would you say is the contrast? Like, what do you feel about those movies?
I feel like you're right on point there as far as the zombies go, because I've seen a gradual evolution as the years have gone by and different film installments have come out. Mm-hmm. Whether it's George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, whether it's this film 28 Days Later, or it's Scarier Sequel 28 Weeks Later, or whether it's Walking Dead, or whether it's any other show that's zombie related. Mm-hmm. They've gone under a continuous evolution. They've also gone into continuous evolution of begging the question of, how did these fuckers die? Like, did they decompose after a short amount of time, or does it take longer? So, there's been a continuous evolution. So I think we're on point there. Yeah,
with that. Totally. One thing I was going to say, so this is directed by Danny Boyle. He also did Trainspotting, just as an example to cite, kind of throw it out there with you guys. Completely different movie, but great nevertheless. Has Ewan McGregor in it. He does fantastic. Cillian Murphy in this one, main character. He does fantastic. I love the acting in this. He comes off as very vulnerable. Later in the movie, comes off as, I will say it for a horror movie, heroic. It's actually very impressive. Yeah, so good stuff. As it relates to like cinematography, this movie is a mixed bag in a good way. So what happens, a lot of movies, like horror movies especially, let's just stick with the zombie movies, they're really drab, usually really almost like monotone, really like muted colors, dull browns, grays, blacks kind of stuff. And that adds to the sense of desolation in a post-apocalyptic environment. But Danny Boyle.
I want to add to that.
Yeah. No. Do your thing.
What I want to add to it is that the contrast of it also adds to the pressure cooker. So, like, when they're all being surrounded in certain action sequences and zombies are chasing after them, and they're using that, very drab or very, very bleak type of color filter when they're shooting with the camera, it adds to the pressure cooker and builds the suspense, especially when like the score that's being used is very like
was excellent.
Hum.
Yeah,
like especially in this movie where it's like a very low hum in certain parts, and like it's very intense. Like it's very like it builds onto it. And so like, as you're doing that, especially that one scene, but in the subway where there are not subway, whatever it's the dark thing where they're trying to drive through it. Yeah, the tunnel. That's what it is. You got me. So I
could confuse it for a weird ass little fucking opening, dude. Like seriously, yeah.
So like as the zombies are coming up and everything, you're seeing the shadows crawl on the walls and everything, and the zombies are starting to come, and the whole time you're like, fix the fucking tire now, come on, go. And,
because of the running.
So it builds onto it. So that's what I was going to add to that.
Yeah. So in other words, just the amount of physicality involved with these levels of or with these types of type of zombie / infected, definitely creates more of an intense environment when it comes to the action sequences too. And yes, this movie does have fucking action sequences in it because of the zombies and stuff. Speaking to the coloration, what I was going to say is, Danny Boyle does the same thing. Like he'll take the colors and he'll keep them muted and dull in the cities. However, This goes out of the cities eventually. And when you get out of the cities, you then start having these environments that are just bright and vibrant, like lush greens, you know, like green grass, and the trees kind of pop. Also, there are scenes where it's almost like, well, I'll just put it out there. So there's a garden of flowers, essentially. And what it is just cinematography where the truck that they're all in, that they're traveling in to get out of the city, drives by this like patch of flowers, right? Like roses and some other ones, like, but they're bright, like reds, yellows, pinks, I think purples even. But when they do that, you can tell that it's not doctored, that it's not altered in any way, but it pops almost like a pastel painting. Like that's how vivid those colors are. And Danny Boyle, I think he did that. Well, he did, I think, do it on purpose. It's to say, okay, well, here's hopelessness and desolation and despair in the city. But then now that you're out of the city, there's some hope there and there's some possibility, even though it's just like in the general coloration of the movie and the way that it's being shot. Like it just gives you that. And even emotionally watching the movie, you know, when we're in the city, I'm like, God, this is horrible, dude. We're all fucked. And then when it got out of there, I'm like, oh, this is a different kind of vibe. I'm liking it. I actually feel like my heart's lifted again and everybody's not going to fucking die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, that's kind of what I was thinking about the movie. And yeah, Rachel, we are talking about 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
So as far as the coloration goes, like I liked how they transitioned between the two different, you know, scenario choices where like they had them in very hopeful areas with like the lush greens and everything, and then when they were in like the one building complex, it was very dark, very dreary, very, you know, dark coloring, browns, things like that. So they don't have lush coloring. So I thought those were really great narrative choices.
Agreed.
Because they also added to the surrounding environment and added to that pressure cooker that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
So it's great the way that the Danny Boyle did the movie. Like they started out at the very beginning. The very first frame that you see in the movie is this video clip of the whole world's just burning over, and there's riots happening. The monkey's watching TV, so literally you're in the viewpoint of the monkey. And then they start talking about the rage being the virus and everything. And the scientists are basically telling the viewer about how dangerous this is. And then you watch someone fucking die at the very beginning, and you're like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen? And then all of a sudden we transition to the hospital scene where the guy's just barely waking up from coma before he tries to go find his family. And so it's kind of like a constant back and forth, depending on, you know, what scene you're in, as to whether it's hopeful or, well, you're fucked.
So it kind of, kind of keeps you on the whole roller coaster thing. It's not just like, you know, it gives you that sense of like everybody's fucked, but then it also gives you the sense of, oh, but you're fucked, but oh, there's hope and possibility. Oh, but wait, no, there's not. And it does that several times in the movie. When they invest in the scenes where it's more positive, that's where a lot of the character development and the character connections start happening. Which makes it all the more devastating when a lot of them die. And a lot of these characters, the way that Danny Boyle pulled this off, there aren't any character shields. So one minute you're thinking, you know, okay, these guys are all invested. There's no possible way they could die. They're a quote unquote a main character, and he'll kill them, like totally. And then you're sitting there going, well, at that point, then if that person can die, who else is to a point where they can die too? Like it just, all bets are off, which keeps it exciting, essentially. Yeah.
Especially during the emotional beats where Frank is one of the mentor figures in Jim's life.
Yeah, father figure, right?
After he walks in, because he talks its entire talk with Celine and their friend at the very beginning. Yeah. And they're talking about, you know, all the families that have died. They're like, you go back to find your family. They're dead. Like, they're dead. Like, just accept it. And he's like, I don't want to accept it. And he's like in a fit of anger. And so he runs off to go find his family. And then he walks into the house, sees the letter that's on the back of the picture of him as a kid, and it's like, don't wake up, Danny, we love you, and everything
that
like
was fucking brutal, actually.
And it's just like, and he sees them, you know, dead on the bed, and he looks over and sees the pills on the desk, and he sees that they obviously must have killed themselves, or they just died.
Oh, they off themselves, buddy.
And so it's just like when he, and so then later on when he's having that dream, and then Frank walks over to him and is like, you know, it's just a bad dream, because he wakes up in the dream. He wakes up and he's like, everyone left me, I'm alone. And then he, you know, he's freaking out. And then Frank walks over to him and goes, it's okay, buddy. And he's like, thank you, Dad. And you're just like, oh, my heart.
But that was to the credit of the writing, because then you knew that Frank knew that is who Jim had lost, right? Exactly. And he understood the familial element. And then later, when Frank fucking dies in the most ridiculous way possible, we won't get into too many details. Just from being infected, right? That was a really tragic, absurd, in a good way scene, but poignant, like tragically poignant is the way I would describe it. this movie is full of that kind of shit. It's amazing. Also, I mean, toward the end of the movie, you do have a lot of things where there are role reversals. So like Jim throughout a lot of the movie seems more subdued and kind of not passive, but, reluctant to engage in violence or, actions. That flips. And then later you have a lot of elements where, he has to become the hero. And I say that, I use that word in a horror movie because that's what it is. And Danny Boyle was amazing in pulling that off. But he becomes the hero, saves the people that he needs to save in a very monstrous way, though. So it's almost like you kind of see him and start looking at him as one of the infected, or even greater than the infected in terms of a threat for those who are trying to hurt who he cares about, right?
That's one of the things that I actually like the best about this flick is that like 10 minutes in, it shows him, being this almost pacifist kind of guy. Like he's very hopeful, very optimistic, and like he doesn't want to engage in fights a whole lot. Yeah. So he doesn't do a lot of fighting at the beginning, and like throughout most of the runtime, he's just trying to take care of the people that that he's finding and he runs into, and he starts to gain sort of a family relationship with Frank, his daughter, and then with Celine.
Yeah.
And then, Frank gets the blood in the eyeball, and then that happens. And like the crow is like the foreshadowing element. And then on the flip side, about 20 minutes before the movie's over, and in fact, it's like 25 minutes, suddenly he's going around the complex, killing off the soldiers that were trying to rape the women.
Monster mode.
Other stuff. Yeah. So there's just berserker mode. It sets the guy loose and just starts killing everybody. And gets to the point where Celine is, thinks that he's gone zombie mode. So she goes to kill him, and he's like shadowed, like his face is shadowed, and like the room is just, desolate.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden she's just like, wait a minute, like, she's scared shitless of him. And he basically, he turned into the monster he was fighting, essentially.
That's exactly my
Like
point.
a narrative
you got
choice.
It. Yeah, no, you nailed it totally. So the story really pulls that off. The other thing too is this movie has an optimistic ending. Absolutely. So, most of the time, Dawn of the Dead and some other films of note, they end and everybody's fucked and everybody dies. Danny Boyle actually made a conscious choice to, obviously made a conscious choice. He had some decisions to make, but there was the version where it ends and it's happy and everybody survives, which is what he gave us. There's the other version where Jim does all of this heroic stuff, okay? Heroic / monstrous to save who he cares about. But ultimately he kills Jim off and the rest of them just have to keep trying to survive. But, Danny Boyle's perspective was, well, if they had to go through that entire journey, that dark journey, and experience all of that and survive and, deal with the horror, give the people that are watching it a payoff, essentially. Give them a happy ending, let everybody kind of survive and do their thing and tie up the ends with a little bow. That sounds bad if you're talking about a horror movie, but it was a good thing in this one because this movie is not something that's easy to watch as they're trying to experience everything, which is why at the end, I think it was a good idea for him to do that and make that choice for a happy ending. So
yeah, and then he gave that narrative choice of giving an alternate ending that you were talking about before when we were talking about the movie off, screen and everything, where he goes off and he, it's a very dreary ending. He dies, a bunch of, shit goes down. And I personally liked the narrative choice he picked for the film, for the official runtime, because it gave a payoff notion. Because if you're just like having, everything mounted against you against the wall and you're being chased by zombies, you're trying to find a family, you find out your parents die, and it's just this big dark notion, the human condition.
All that time,
like,
yeah,
like you need payoff. You need to be reminded that there's a chance. And so that's why I myself love that ending, the hopeful one, because it gave this notion, like it made the dark stuff towards the middle and towards like beginning and end, like all the stuff that's in the meat, it made it more poignant because
Agreed.
like it made it to where the struggle was worth it.
I definitely agree.
And like, and if they just went off and died, you'd just be like, okay, they're just gonna die, whatever.
You weren't as invested. Yeah, I got you, man. And then really quick, I want to just kind of point out. So Rachel Gordon, we've got Rachel in the chat. We've got Joshua James Fry. Joshua, we love you so much, man. We know that we were having some things going on before, so we had to get the stream restarted. The fact that you came back, we love you. We adore you. Oh, we love you, buddy. Fantastic.
We love you, buddy.
Give him a kiss. Give him a kiss, Thomas. Do this fucking thing for him. There you go. Might be a little awkward and weird, Joshua, but you deserve that. So we're giving it to you, baby. This is happening. Yeah. Also, Judy Amber Paxton is here watching with us in the shadows. Welcome to you too as well. What we'll do from here, because we got to talk about our fucking review, right? So we've got to talk about what we're going to do. This one, we kind of do a noose factor. So in terms of a noose, we do 1 to 10. This one for me, it was a 9. Okay. So the reason why I gave it a 9, it takes a lot for me to say a movie is a 10. It's got to be fucking perfection. This movie's not perfect, but it's damn close in terms of a zombie movie and being able to like basically reinvigorate the zombie genre, because early 2000s, before that, there wasn't really anything out there. Danny Boyle's movie came out, helped to do that. Zack Snyder helped to do that, but Danny Boyle really helped to kind of recharge it and put things out. People were like, oh my God, zombies are fucking fresh again and they're new, which does tend to happen every few decades. It's kind of weird. The one thing I was going to say is up until now, like zombies have seemed to be persisting for, the past several years, which is interesting. I think you'd get burnout, but I guess people just identify with zombies as a whole in terms of a culture and what they represent in terms of consumerism and stuff, which, it tends to resonate. Getting off topic with that shit, because we're talking about a review. Yeah, I talk a lot. Fuck off. It is what it is. I was going to say fuck off. Yeah, but guys,
no worries.
We love all of you. Stay here.
Yeah, I was going to say that
Josh was like, it was cathartic. Agreed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was very cathartic. So I would say that as far as the movie goes, I'd give it like I would 9.5, 9.5 ish, because I did go there, because there's like, if I were to look at the movie again, there might be a couple things I might change, maybe, I don't know, but like as far as the movie goes, I'm gonna be generous and just give it a 9.5, because I was so invested in the entire flick. Yeah. Like I even loved the scene in the middle of the movie where they go to the grocery store and like the guy and like Frank like drops his card on the front desk just to be like, I paid for it, even though he didn't actually pay for anything.
Scruples, morals.
And, like, it's like it's kind of like a like the couple of times in the movie where they were like, oh, by the way, everything's still normal. We're all still human. And so it was a human moment for them to go in the store, and they even used an upbeat type of soundtrack for that scene. So, like, I'd give it a 9.5 because it was a very enjoyable adventure, and I really dug, like, Jim's journey, especially when, like, he lost his parent, and then he gained another one, and then he lost it again. And then Hannah, who just loses her dad in general, and she'd already lost her mom. So, and then when they go to the apartment, like, there's, like, the Christmas lights, and there's, like, the really nice atmospheric stuff, and then he talks about, like, the raindrops on the roof and how it hasn't rained in, like, weeks. And so he's, like, trying to just deal with the fact that their wife, his wife's gone, and they're just trying.
There's
a
lot of shit. There's a lot of poignant shit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about survival, but a lot of things that also speak to humanity, and that humanity will continue to survive, and that we have feelings and emotions, and we value the human condition, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it's a really good thing. He added layers and depths. Danny Boyle added those layers and depths to the story, which is amazing. Really quick. So, because we said we love you, Joshua. We do love you, buddy. Like, you're in here, man. You're supporting it. We appreciate that. Absolutely. We adore and love you. Man. You're right here with us in the horror and with the discussions that we're having about the profound and deep and amazing content that Danny Boyle created for us. All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to switch gears. We're going to move into 28 weeks later. We're going to throw it out with a trailer. Let's do this, man. And then we'll talk about it.
Welcome to London.
We're heading into District 1. Although District 1 is completely safe, outside the security zone, London remains a wasteland. There are a large number of bodies still left to be cleared from the original outbreak of infection.
We're nearly home. How old are you, Andy?
12.
I think that makes you the youngest person in the entire country. Welcome back.
And we wish you luck in your new lives.
Oh, I missed you so much.
This is what it's all about, gentlemen. Family starting again. You like it?
It's amazing.
Are you going to tell us what happened to Mum?
The last infected human died 6 months ago.
We weren't here 6 months ago.
Have you come into direct contact with the infected?
Execute Code Red.
It's probably nothing.
We've lost control. Kill everyone.
In my shadow, that's it.
All right, so moving into 28 Weeks Later, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. This movie is also fucking amazing. Now, what I will say about this one, it equals, if not surpasses, 28 Days Later, depending on the kind of content that we're talking about. This one, it's definitely a faster paced movie, and it kicks off way quicker. So what happens basically is the premise is outbreak is pretty much done. The zombies infected have reached a point where they're either starving off because they're mortal, they can be killed, starving off, or being killed by the military. And in fact, in this case, it's the U.S. military that has stepped in to help kind of, just reinvigorate humanity in that area in London. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
it's like repopulate it, basically.
Repopulate it, right? Kind of a thing. So going in to help repopulate and get everything going again, which basically they do, very communal. They bring a lot of the residents that are in the outside areas of London back in and, start giving them, I think it's, they do get jobs, giving them jobs and getting an infrastructure set up again, right? Which of course, being that it's 28 weeks later, something happens, the outbreak goes apeshit again, people get infected, but now it's like the whole city is coming down and what you're experiencing is what you didn't see in 28 Days Later, which is, well, what happens when this thing initially happens and the absolute fucking chaos that ensues from all of that. The main character in this, Doyle, played by, and I'm terrible with fucking names, so you're going to have to help me here, Thomas.
Carlisle.
What was that?
Carlisle. I think his name is Carlisle.
Yeah. Well, Doyle, the one I'm talking about is Doyle. So he's the guy for me. Well, the main character for me, I guess it could vary depending on the perspectives because they change it up. The character let's say this, the character that sticks out to me the most would be Doyle. That's the guy who was playing, almost had like a Chris Redfield kind of a vibe that he was putting out. That's the soldier that was protecting everyone, essentially. Because I would almost equate him to being up there with characters.
Jeremy Renner, then, I think.
Who played Hawkeye, right? Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Yeah, Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, he nailed it. Carlisle, who plays the father in this, he does amazing. Yeah. So yeah, we're sitting here like, yeah, that's great. No, seriously.
No, see, the beginning of the movie begins with this family dinner scene in which they're all talking about like everything that's happened since the last movie. So it's kind of like a catch up for people who haven't seen the first movie. And then like right as they're talking and they're trying to, enjoy themselves and like, basically being human again, which is kind of a throwback to the first movie. Mm-hmm. The father, Carlisle's character, goes and talks to his wife and they're like, trying to have like this very human moment and everything. And then shortly after that happens, the zombies attack and then they are under attack. And, we have to deal with the fact that, zombies are out there. And shortly after everything's repopulated, it's been weeks, it's been months. Mm-hmm. And, we've repopulated the entire thing. We go from London to like some, I think it was America. And we start realizing that the zombie outbreak has reached out even further and it's more.
Well, it's hinted at. So, yeah. I mean, basically it's all in London, but then you realize that, in terms of like the outbreaks and stuff that are happening, the potential, this is at the end of 28 Days Later, they kind of established that it's a national or an international situation. They don't expand upon it too heavily. In this one, it is London, but I mean, the U.S. government had to intervene to try to help just based on how severe it was getting, essentially. And London didn't have the fucking resources to do the things. So what happens basically is everything blows up again. U.S. military has to try to sit there and defend the residents that have, tried to thrive and flourish and kind of come back from the chaos. But everything devolves again, turns into a living nightmare of infection and fucking infected happiness and goodness and galore. You know what I mean? So, and gore.
Yeah, especially the part where he's in the hospital and he's talking to his wife on the hospital bed and he goes from like kissing her and stuff like that to being exposed to it. And then out of nowhere, you have this very bloodthirsty scene where he's basically basically going monstrous. And then we spend over half the runtime watching him just be this zombie monster to the point where you have that moment at the end where he's basically having to be killed by the love of his life. And then you've got, Doyle's character who's going around trying to save everybody.
That's Renner. Basically who plays Hawkeye in the Avengers series. He's fucking awesome, actually.
He kills it. Like he kills it. Like I honestly, like when I was watching the movie, I remember watching him in Thor, like Thor 2. Or no, not Thor 2, Thor 1, in which he's going around with a crossbow and everything. And then I remember watching him in like all the Avengers movies. So it was kind of funny because it was like he was putting on the same costume, but like under a different name, and he wasn't part of the Avengers. And so he's kind of like walking around in this movie, trying to save everybody, and he like just kills it as the protector. Like,
I agree.
I thought he did really good.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, really quick. So Joshua, because we were talking about like trying to like reinvigorate and repopulate the city. This was probably a while ago. He stated this, but reinstate order. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Basically. Thanks for actually breaking down that terminology for us. Absolutely. But yeah, in terms of the movie overall, I want to elaborate on what you said about Chris Renner's character. So Doyle, right? Starts off just kind of, a vanilla soldier, but then you realize over time that he's really invested in the people that he's trying to save. I like to make the parallelism of the Resident Evil games. Yes, I'm geeking out here. I like video games as well. Okay. Horror video games, whatever. Resident Evil, the series, Chris Redfield, right? Who's pretty much the main protagonist. Okay. Soldier, very heroic, kind of has the same attributes. Chris Renner was totally channeling Chris Redfield, dude. That character. He was amazing. Keeping everything under control, getting them through the city, trying to get them to survive and get them to safe ground, kind of a thing. Ultimately, his fucking character gets killed. And that was insane, because for me, it was like he had what I thought was a character shield. He was going to make it. He might have been messed up or been, severely wounded, but he wasn't going to get completely killed off. They kill him off in a horrifying fashion. And then you realize same thing. There's no character shield on fucking anybody. Like anybody could die.
And that's shortly after the big scene near the end where like they have like this big scene where the helicopters like just flying through the field and like
Joshua was like
bodies.
Sorry man, really quick. Joshua was like, I can see Chris. Yeah, exactly.
I can see Chris. Yeah, Chris Redfield.
So mowing down bodies.
Yeah, so yep. And so the helicopter was sitting there mowing down all these bodies, and you're seeing all this guts and everything. It was just beautiful gore and horror and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, we see Jeremy's character Chris get blown up. Like he just gets set on fire, and suddenly you're watching as the hope that was protecting you is now being gunned down, and you're just like, no hope. You're just like, oh my God, he's dead now. And you're like, what's gonna happen next?
Well, the one thing too, this movie flips it. So Danny Boyle, Danny Boyle had like a happy streak in him. He has some kind of happiness somewhere deep in his soul. Okay. So in 28 Days Later, he ends it with an optimistic outcome, right? And we're all like, oh, we love it. Fluffy little bunny rabbits and shit. That was great. Fresnadillo doesn't even fuck around. This movie ends and it is not a happy ending, and actually leaves it open for a sequel where, they survive, they get to a helicopter, they're able to take off and get out. But for whatever reason, however it happens, the helicopter goes down. Internationally though, on European soil, like in Paris. Okay. So once it's in Paris and people start getting infected, well, guess what? Now it has the opportunity to go fucking everywhere. Obviously, at that point, you're wondering, well, how far does the infection spread? Like now it's going to get really bad. You know what I mean? But Fresnadillo just went balls out and said, no, this is going to be a tragic ending, and it's going to set it up for a pretty horrifying third act if we're going to go there. I actually didn't mind that. I appreciated it, because at least at that point, it's almost like an Empire Strikes Back, right? First one was happy, New Hope. They destroyed the Death Star. I'm making the parallelisms with fucking Star Wars. Okay. Yes, I am. So the first one, A New Hope, they ended out, they destroyed the Death Star. Second act, that's some dark shit. That's Empire Strikes Back, man. Like that movie does not end happily. So potentially, Fresnadillo sets it up, okay, where it's shit. Like everything's going to go bad, and maybe it becomes, a global scale of infection. They could still go the other way. They could still do fucking Return of the Jedi, man, and make something happen. Or he could totally take it to the shit again and make it even darker and create like, okay, they tried everything they could to make things better, but they couldn't pull it off. Sad ending, tragic. So for me, it wasn't necessarily fresh, but the way that he executed the entire movie and his fearlessness with killing off characters that you did get invested in and were just rooting for, it was impressive. It was awesome. The one thing I was going to say, especially with time, because I want to go over some other things. We're going to talk about your book too, Thomas, is we're talking about the news factor for this movie. Okay. Out of 1 to 10, man, I'll do a 9.5. I'll be fucking brave. I'll do it.
Yeah.
For this one, I'll do a 9.5.
Go for it?
I said 9 for 28 Days Later. 9.5 just because of the pacing in this one. And 28 Days Later, there were moments where I almost got the urge in my mind to say, pacing. Okay, it feels a little like, when there were happy stuff, when you had gone through all of the shit and all of the chaos to the happy stuff, and they were really going into like the characters and everything. I liked it. but then it was kind of like, okay, there's a lot of filler I'm feeling going on. Like, let's move forward. You don't even have fucking time to do that in 28 weeks later. That's just a straight up go, survive. And at the end, you're like, oh, good goddamn, like that was a ride kind of a feeling, right? It didn't have the depth or the layers that 28 Days Later had. But in terms of like giving it a second act, right, and building it up for potentially a third and doing the bridge, it was good. It was good stuff. So
yeah, I have to say I give it about a 9.5 as well, because it was very. Yeah, it was that or 9.6, just 1 point above yours. It's like just because the flipping, like they flip it so much.
Fucking
like
copycat. He's a fucking copycat.
They got him flipping in like the middle of the movie, in which he like they go to that daring choice to let's make one of the first characters that you got invested in. Let's make him a fucking zombie, and then let's make him have to confront his wife at the end, and it's just like this very dark like narrative spin on it, and it's very Empire, as you said, like because in the Empire you've got Luke finds out Darth Vader's his father, you find out some of the other stuff that's going on in the movie, and by the same token with this one, where we end it, they're flying in the sky, zombies are escaping, and everything's an outbreak, and suddenly you're like going, what the fuck is next? Like where
what the fuck is happening
from here?
Exactly.
And so I would say that like constant pressure cooker, and you said that there was some pacing stuff that you would have probably changed in the first one. Maybe you could have lifted a couple things, maybe could have trimmed down the happy moments down by like maybe
by no means saying it was a bad movie, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like it's not like saying that it's a bad movie. It's just like if you're editing a film and you're trying to make it as tight as possible, especially when you've got that pressure cooker going, because when it comes to a zombie flick, you've got to have that intensity going. And if you're like at any point looking at your phone or like looking around going, this is kind of dragging a little bit, then you've got to do some small micro trimming. Because even with like, as you're saying with the book that you're going to talk about, when it comes to editing a novel, like you want to like, even like filler words, stuff that you thought is at the time was like, this is poignant, this is matters. Like if you lift it, and even if like it's small, like in per chapter, it's like maybe 100 word increments. Yeah. That's like 1,000 words by the time you get to 10 chapters. So if like you get to the beginning of the movie and the middle of the movie and end of the movie, and you're starting to lift like small increments of film time, then you could easily trim off 5-10 minutes. And right there, if someone needs to go pee and stuff, and the credits are already rolling, and they're like, oh my God, I got to run to the bathroom. So it's like, it makes sense. Like it's fair. Like, so that's why I was like going, with movie 2, I felt like it definitely felt very better paced. And especially halfway through the movie, you see like all these zombies just running after people, and they're chasing each other in subways, and you get like more of this feel, the cathartic feel that you used to get from like Dawn of the Dead and some of the other movies. So they were able to spend more money, and they were also able to amplify and like blow up the production just a little bit to make it slightly more sleek, kind of.
No, they trimmed it down. That I agree with that. So what I was going to say too is it was good that Danny Boyle added that many layers and richness, albeit disturbing richness, to the first one. Seriously, dude, right? Because that sets it up where you could have a more trimmed down, action-packed second act to it, and then potentially move into a third. Danny fucking Boyle or Fresnadillo, please make a third one. We're ambitious here in the Cinema Macabre. You'll see this and you'll understand how much we love you guys so much. Make this shit happen. Do a third act. God damn, give us that. Give us some kind of closure, whether it's happiness and we love everybody in the universe and the world is great again, or we're fucking everybody over and everybody's going to die. I have no problem with that.
A bittersweet ending.
Or maybe a bittersweet combination of the two. It's kind of like popcorn with fucking, peanut M&Ms. You toss the peanut M&Ms in and you got your choices. I do that shit, okay? That's delicious shit. If you think that's weird, get the fuck over that and try it, because you will love it.
What do you want to see happen in the third movie?
I don't know. It could go either way. As long as they do something where it's either a good mix of both, or you have characters that die that you never wanted to die, but it ends happy. It doesn't matter. As long as they can pull it off, and as long as they can just give us a fucking movie, I would be excited for that.
Do you know what I kind of want to see happen?
I don't know. But
I want to see. I want to see the monkeys at the beginning, or at least one of them, like run into Jim in the third movie, like kind of like a throwback, and then also bring in the ladies that we just saw in the helicopter, bring in them, and then bring in this other cast of characters that are different. And maybe by the end of the movie, we watch as like, say the monkey has an ape buddy or something. You watch as they have to lose that ape or something, or you watch as, they have like this cathartic spin of narrative where like the world gets a little bit bigger, just a little bit, not a lot, because you're closing out the chapter. but you have this narrative that it builds onto the first two and shows you the consequences of the first two, while also spinning on that hope and then giving it that bittersweet ending. So that by the end of the movie, you're just like, oh my God, I got what I needed, not what I wanted.
You didn't. Like, so what you're saying is you really didn't have any sort of fucking ending for a third act, like thought out at all. That was all spontaneous and stuff. You weren't methodical at all.
Yeah.
Good goddamn, dude. Holy fucking shit. Like you want to see a lot from that. Shit, you've thought about this stuff. Wow, impressive. I'm impressed. Thanks for outshining my ass. I appreciate that. That's fucking mortifying. Fucking A. All right, fine. Yeah, what Thomas said for a third act. Fuck you very much, Thomas. Okay. Now
you're very welcome.
Yeah, whatever. Buddy. So we're gonna move on now. Now I'm gonna do you another favor, buddy. So Thomas is a writer, okay, up and coming writer, and he has a book that he has just recently finished, and we're going to plug and promote this motherfucking thing. Okay. So for Thomas, I will leave it here. Go ahead and plug and promote your shit, buddy. Show us what you've got. Show us this magnificence. It's all done too. It's like just delicious.
Yeah, so as far as the book goes, like it's edited, like it's getting edited by an editor right now. I don't know if you can see it. Like I think it's right there.
Looks good, man.
So yeah, so this is the proof copy. This is not necessarily the final version. I'm probably gonna blow up the exposure just a little bit, but like there's gonna be some fine tuning to it. But I'm waiting for the editor to get back to me so I can do the edits and do what I was talking about, where the lifting. Because even if like you're going through certain parts, like you just flip through the book to like a certain part and you're just like, oh my God, I love this part, and then like she part starts pointing out stuff that introduces perspective in your life, which is what you're paying her for. You just start looking at it and you're like, oh my God, I should probably lift that, and then you start trimming it for length. Suddenly it's a more action-packed adventure. So as far as this goes,
editing,
so this book is currently on Wattpad actually. So we tend to like to involve everybody into what our activities are in the chat and everything, as far as admins go, and like where everybody else. With this book, you can find on Wattpad. He put a picture on the feed, and so you can see it there. But the Wattpad link itself is you just sign up for free on Wattpad. And if you don't want to, that's fine. You could just wait till after the edit is done. But basically, it's on Wattpad, and so you can either comment on it, give me feedback about certain parts that maybe could use trimming, or maybe you look at it and you're like, I love this part. Like, definitely let me know that too. What works for you, what doesn't, what really hits you hard. I really hope it hits you hard, because this story is basically about a vampire kid, Peter, who has a werewolf friend who's also a dreamwalker. He's got a female love interest who is Virima. She's kind of a survivor. It's like 5 different origin stories within one big narrative. So it's like
complex.
It explores 5 perspectives kind of thing.
I got you.
And it's basically there's a political feud going on in the background between his relative, his uncle, and his cousin's grandmother, who are both warring for power. They both want to, change the world in, their own way.
This sounds very complicated and delicious.
So it's kind of like a social commentary on what happens when people that are a little too bloodthirsty for themselves, like they try to gain power. And so it's about the powerless trying to become the powerful, but it's also about not letting your trauma consume you.
That's beautiful,
and
man.
It's about healing, beautiful. And it's about the cathartic human condition, like what I've talked about.
Yeah. Judy's like, don't spoil it, dude. Goddamn. Yeah, don't go too far into your own fucking shit.
I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just saying that
good.
That's kind of what it's about. Is that it's about these characters who are dealing with these scenarios in their life, and they're trying to get through life in general, when especially since you're in the perspective of kids who are dealing with really irresponsible adults. And so like there's a lot of different battles in there. There's a lot of different mirroring and stuff like that going on, like foils. And there's so basically I'm gonna read off the back. Basically, vampire prince named Peter gets sucked into a conflict with a Braxton, a demon who likes starting children. And yes, if you're thinking Freddy, you're correct. It's very much inspired by him.
That's fine.
His friend,
that's a winner right there, man.
Phyllis, Orion, and his cousin Sam, as well as Peter's pup Ares, a hellhound, have various adventures amidst the political conflict varying between his uncle Kresh and his cousin Sam's grandmother Alex. They learn about the Unholy Trinity, an ancient group that is seeking to rise in power again that will threaten their entire world. Peter will also learn more of his Shadowfang heritage and how this power will give him what is needed to face the Unholy Trinity.
I like that description. Yeah, that's really cool, man. Joshua in the chat is like, absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is kind of a pretty solid summary of what we're talking about. You know what I mean? In terms of the book.
It's kind of the commentary
absolutely.
on it is that if you give someone absolute power, then they're bound to screw it up somewhere. So it's, great. The whole old adage from Spider-Man of like, great power comes great responsibility. That does play or inform on the narrative. So that's kind of the book that I wrote that I'm plugging in here, is talking about the story about this kid who's dealing with irresponsible people, and so he has to learn how to learn from that. Otherwise, he'll just start repeating the same mistakes.
Gotcha.
And not become what he's fighting.
So this fucking book, man, this book that sounds absolutely amazing. I know that you've got this, and it's kind of in a intermediate stage, right, of development.
Yeah.
Like when would you expect to be able to see have this or see this in retail? Like how far are we talking about? Is it a ways out still, honestly, or is it close?
It's a bit of a ways out. I would like to release it this fall, honestly.
Oh, God, that's around the corner, baby. That's fucking brilliant.
But I also may end up having to push it out till March or April next year.
All right.
Because of the fact that the editing, like I have to pay her, and so it's kind of like on a payment plan type thing. And so she's doing round 1 right now, and then after that we're going to do round 2, and then I'll be able to do like whatever tweaking or anything else like that.
Yeah.
But the story itself is done. Like it's like the only thing that needs to happen is for her to be like, trim that, add this, add that, maybe tweak that, and that's pretty much it. Like that's
so you're right. You're right, fucking there, dude. Like you're ready almost to do the thing. That's amazing. Like, because I'm ready to read the motherfucker. I want to wait though. I want to wait though until it's done. Like I want to have the copy in my fucking hand, and I can like read the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So I mean, at this point, guys, just for time, because we're getting really close, probably going to call it out for this episode of the podcast. I was going to tell everyone, Joshua, Rachel, Judy, a couple of others that came in, thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. Absolutely. And yeah, expect to have content coming forward this next weekend. We look forward to hanging out with you guys again, providing that, talking about some more movies, talking about some kick-ass shit. Thomas,
absolutely.
Do you have anything to add, sir, before we close out the grandeur and greatness that was this podcast?
I would say that we definitely are learning from growing pains.
Correct.
And we're definitely moving forward from here. So the next week we'll hopefully not have the same problems. But going forward,
small fucking problems. Okay.
Definitely enjoy what we've got here. I hope that we've done well at being able to provide you, some good quality content. And as far as like how the podcast is, next time we're just going to continue being better at what we're doing. So we really appreciate the people who have commented in the chat. We really appreciate the people who took the time to tune in and over and over again. Because I had to send out links, but while the trailers are playing, I had to send out links a couple times and be like, resend. And I felt really bad because I'm like, they've probably got like 2 or 3 of those already. But like,
it's all right though, man.
Yeah. So we really appreciate you guys being here, and we really appreciate you guys tuning in. It means the world to us.
Absolutely, it does.
So as far as that goes, like you can find me on Twitter under Peter SF1991.
He's plugging the fucking book again. Do you hear this guy? Yeah, he's like, we love you and appreciate you. Here's my book. That's all right though. So it's badass he's doing a book.
You could also find Cinema Macabre on Twitter, and then soon we'll be able to be putting these on YouTube. And we'll be able to give you a more smoother way of consuming them.
Let me break that down for him. Totally. Okay, so guys, what happens is this stuff, obviously, when we go live, it gets recorded. And then on my main page, or the main page for, not only advertising purposes, but just for content purposes, right? Entertainment. We put it on there, it's recorded, and then anything that we do with this, I also have a separate recording from the source, not to get too technical with this shit, just a higher quality of it, like a more polished version of it that I then upload so that it's like the full experience. It's fun to have this one, guys, because when you come in, you're participating with us. This stuff happens and you guys are immortalized forever. Okay. Because you've interacted. I mean, it's great. Yeah. Joshua's like, oh yeah, I need to follow you on Twitter, Thomas. Thank you very much for doing that too, Joshua. Yeah, for sure.
You.
But yeah, big emphasis, quality content, highest fidelity possible kind of stuff. I always work toward that. I love the fact that you guys are coming in and actually enjoying and experiencing the content that we're making. Next weekend, we'll be around. We're going to give you guys some more stuff, more content. We'll go from there. Everyone, we're signing out now. Hope you have a great Saturday evening. Go do something fun. This is my normal thing. Because you need to get the hell out of there, man. People are kind of trying to recover from the week. Go see a movie. Go see a brand new horror movie. Yeah, go do that, actually. All right, guys. Enough's enough.
Yeah, have fun.
Have fun. Absolutely. And signing off now, guys. Thank you very much again for attending, and have a good one.
Woo! I'm going to give the people what they want. Sensation, horror, shock. Send them out in the streets to tell their friends how wonderful it is to be scared to death.